Hi, this is Casey, and I'd like to start off with that I really didn't know how much to expect when I came into this class. I knew there would be a lot of media watching, but I didn't really know how much this class was really going to change the way that I view my media. Coming into this course, I knew prior basic knowledge about most of the topics that we covered in this class. I knew women were often portrayed very sexually in order to appeal to the male audience, and that LGBTQ representation wasn't accurate and it wasn't nearly enough, and that also that there wasn't enough diversity in films. But I didn't fully comprehend that the representation that I was noticing in media was wrong. I figured some representation was better than none, and I realize now after this class that that isn't true. Because the way different groups are portrayed in media is affecting how people who have viewed that media treat the people that are being misrepresented. Whether it's Black or Asian communities, women, or LGBTQ persons. The media has really strengthened stereotypes and myths about different cultures and persons and races, and corrupting people into believing things that aren't true. And this is where I became really thankful for my peers. The 10 a.m. group never ceased to bring up an eye-opening point when discussing things and bringing to light things that I didn't notice. I remember when discussing Princess and the Frog, I don't remember who brought it up, but I definitely don't think I would have ever realized the white saviorism in that movie that Lottie portrayed. Same within The Help. I don't think I ever would have noticed that. And maybe it's because I'm a white female that I didn't see like myself represented in those women. But it really showed an entirely new way to view media. I learned to look beneath the surface of movies and shows and really find more meaning to them and more purpose. I also really enjoyed the selected media assignment. It was really interesting to rewatch movies that I had already seen and think about them really critically and kind of follow the prompts that my peers brought up. And it was really cool to discuss how every person interpreted the movie in a different way, and also to kind of dissect each movie that everybody, or each media that everybody chose. A couple of the ones that I particularly enjoyed and learned a lot from was The Lorax and Unbelievable. The Lorax really kind of introduced and strengthened sizeism, which I was pretty unfamiliar with before this class. And Unbelievable introduced a bunch of representation that I was not familiar with, such as the different detectives and their different styles and how they treat the victims, and also the way that the different girls reacted after being raped. Without my peers, I wouldn't have noticed those things and really learned from them. And I really thank my peers for that. Like, this class was really beneficial because of them and because of you, the professor. I believe representation today is improving in a lot of aspects. Today, we're seeing a lot more representation in general and a lot more accurate representation, especially of Black and Asian communities, in the form of movies such as Black Panther and Crazy Rich Asians, as well as The Sun is Also a Star, which not only have representation on screen but also behind the screen. We're also seeing more incorporating of different cultures into children's movies and shows, like Over the Moon, which was the same thing. Like, the voice actors themselves were of Asian descent, and so was the crew. I feel movies and shows are being a lot more progressive through diversity and LGBTQ representation. The TV show Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Big Mouth are two shows that I feel are beginning to normalize LGBTQ representation and their characters and their relationships. We talked about Brooklyn Nine-Nine in class, but a few weeks ago, I watched the newest season of Big Mouth, their fourth season. And if you're unfamiliar with Big Mouth, it's an adult cartoon, and I feel it's pretty raunchy. I wasn't sure how well they were going to execute representation appropriately, But they introduced, spoiler alert, they introduced a new transgender character, which I was really hoping for, and I'm really glad that they did it. And this character was in almost every episode in the season. They had their own storyline, they had their own arc. And this character, I thought they were represented fairly well. And the writers also continued to develop Matthew's story throughout the season, who is the gay character on the show. And a decade ago, you wouldn't have seen any of this representation. You wouldn't have seen, so much ethnic diversity. You wouldn't have seen, gay characters playing gay roles or voicing gay characters. And in addition to representation in general, it wouldn't have been accurate. And I feel that it is getting more accurate now. I really do think media companies are trying to be more diverse and accurate in their representation, but I guess the future will only tell whether that happens. But for the most part, I feel that media is on the right path. There's generally more representation, and they aren't following the stereotypes or the tropes of previous media. For the most part, I'm pretty optimistic in terms of women representation and getting more ethnic diversity in media. I'd like to say that I'm optimistic about LGBTQ representation as well, but I admit to say that I'm weary of it, given the past presidential term and kind of the hate and the divide that I feel has been carved into our society and into humanity as a whole towards LGBTQ persons. It just makes me nervous for the actors and actresses' safety. I don't, hate crimes. It just makes me nervous, but I do have hope for the future. I really do think my media consumption will change. I've already started to look at movies in a more skeptical light. And when I notice misrepresentation in movies, it turns me off. Like, I won't watch that movie again if I notice it. I've already been using the Bechdel test when consuming a lot of my media. I try to pick movies and shows that pass it, and if they don't, I'm more hesitant to watch or won't rewatch. I know that there are some really great movies that don't pass the Bechdel test, but for a reason I can't necessarily pinpoint, I feel that the test is really important to pass in terms of equality and diversity in a movie, even though I'm pretty sure the test, if I remember correctly, was a joke at first. I can definitely see myself in the future only paying for movies at the theater if they pass for the Bechdel test, and not spending my money on movies that don't pass the Bechdel test. So yeah, I hope you have a wonderful holiday and a wonderful break, and I really enjoyed this class, so thanks for having me. Bye.